Yasser Louati, who joins us live from Paris. He's a human rights activist and the head of the Justice and Liberties for All Committee. Hi, Yasser. Thanks for being with us. So as per President Macron's actions, I mean, how much do you think he really believes in what he's saying versus how much he wants to appeal to a segment of French society that really has these right-wing views?
First I'm going to quote the former President Jacques Chirac about the cartoons when he said that, yes, there is a freedom of speech, but it also comes with a responsibility towards not offending others. Now, if Emmanuel Macron wants to speak about freedom of speech, how about the journalists who get prosecuted under his watch? The day he blamed a French journalist for revealing to the world that he had met with Hezbollah officials, and Emmanuel Macron speaking about so-called Islamists want France as a future. How about him having 32,000 people who died under the COVID-19, a million people who have crossed the poverty line in France, 100 billion euros in tax evasion, without him doing anything about it? I don't think Emmanuel Macron is in a position to speak of our future when he himself was brought into power by a tiny minority whose sole interests he is protecting. As for the cartoons themselves, back again, how can we teach people freedom of speech when it comes to insulting our neighbors, our colleagues, our bus drivers and teachers? And how about we don't teach about freedom of speech by mentioning the people who had brave ideas who spoke truth to power? Politicians, it could be journalists, intellectuals, artists, Galileo, for example. And honestly, this hypocrisy is fueling a crisis that only Emmanuel Macron has created in the aftermath of a national tragedy.
Okay. Help us, Yasser, please. I mean, better understand the dynamics inside of France. We know a huge majority of French Muslims are, of course, outraged by what happened to somewhat Paty. But instead of, that becoming a unifying event against radicals, has it been politicized and then spun into a Muslims versus France issue?
Well, it's because when there is a we, W-E, in France, it does not include Muslims. Again, when terrorists strike, they make no difference between Muslims and non-Muslims, black or white, men and women. Yet our politicians, they always make a difference in the aftermath of a tragedy. We saw it after the January 2015 attacks, November 2015 attacks. It was always us versus them. And them is Muslims at home labeled the enemy within, and of course, foreign terrorist organizations to whom they are supposed to be sympathetic. Now, again, Emmanuel Macron is holding Muslims responsible for this tragedy when first it's a national intelligence failure. The guy was reported multiple times. We have mass surveillance in France, yet the Minister of Interior failed miserably the same way they failed every single time. And for him, he knows that by delving into this identity hysteria, he's going to be appear more sympathetic to the majority of the population. But now the majority of the population does know, in fact, that Emmanuel Macron has failed and had nothing to show them for their future. And again, Emmanuel Macron is only fooling himself, and the people advising him are doing him a disservice. You cannot, adopt a far-right discourse and hope to beat them in their own game.
Okay. Yasser Louati joining us there. Thank you so much for that from Paris.